In this first tutorial video, I want to start you off learning the basics of a program called TinkerCAD. To get that framed up in your head, I did a little definition search. What is CAD? CAD stands for Computer Aided Design. The big concept here is, as a designer, you get a computer to help you. I want to make that distinction very clear. You are the designer. The computer is one of your tools to help you make your designs. So what is a computer-aided software? Well, I think a lot of you maybe have seen things somewhere in movies or online or something where people are using software to design shapes, whether the shapes happen to be houses, computer console games, engine parts, complex school type buildings, or whatever they would be. You see people using software, CAD software, to do designing of parts. One of the huge benefits of having a computer doing these kinds of designs is how intricate of a detail you can create in the software. All these little shapes and contours and pockets and spaces allow people to build things that in the past would have been much more challenging. I use this as an example inside of a laptop. You can see how someone designed the shape of different components to blend around the other shapes, and it becomes very compact, very tight fitting. Another example on a cell phone. Look at where that SIM card blends around this other part, and then there's a battery blended right in with the camera and those buttons along the side and the charging. It's very compact. A CAD system allows for that. Inside of a car, if you look at modern cars, you'll see how everything blends together. Each of these pieces of plastic fits perfect, well, I shouldn't say perfectly, but very tight tolerance, very close together. This door closes, and that little curved contour of that door fits just perfectly around that curved contour of that dash. The windshield glass curves just on the right contour with that piece of plastic that goes. That speaker fits in that hole perfectly on that crazy little angle. All that trim, every one of these little pieces on this car has been designed by somebody, typically, I'm pretty sure, using some kind of a CAD software, some kind of a program that helps them design it. Doesn't do it for them, it helps them, and that's the CAD. TinkerCAD is a software program that allows you to make designs. And my goal is to get each of you to use this CAD software to help design stuff. It's probably a little bit familiar to you using some other design tools, drawing tools. I'm holding the mouse cursor button or the scroll button down. I can rotate around. I hold the right mouse button down and I can rotate my drawing surface. As I do that, you can see this cube up here. It's rotating too. It moves in sync. So if I have trouble, I can click here. If I want, I can do the front view. I can click to the side view. I can get in trouble and then find myself going home again. So there's different ways you can do that and zoom in and out and find your space. One of the first things I want you to do when you start on TinkerCAD is go down here and you'll see, well, my little icon here is in the way, but it shows it in millimeters. So I want you to click on Edit the Grid. We're going to work in inches because that's what North America is doing. There is a preset here, and it's really TinkerCAD's a really nice little software for doing basic CAD work and eventually going on to 3D printing, which is where I hope to give you a bit of exposure if I can. I'm not sure, I'm learning TinkerCAD too, if that makes a difference, but we can put it as a MakerBot replica 5th generation 3D printer, and then you click upgrade. Now this blue square should replicate that 3D printer you've seen kicking around in our school. And that workspace with this rabbit sitting on, that's as big a thing as you can make on the 3D printer we have in the school that we can use. So I went into TinkerCAD and I changed the grid so that just because we can, and to learn, this blue replica rectangle surface matches the machine we have in our school to use. Of course, you could pick anything, it doesn't really matter. Now, you have your navigation tools down the side. I already showed you what that does. You can rotate it from there or from here. There's some tools up here: copy, paste, duplicate, undo, go backwards, redo. There are other tools over here, and over the next video or two, I'm going to try to show you what they're for. Right now, when you open it, it defaults to basic shapes, but there are some other features in there. I'm going to stick to basic shapes. I hope to show you a very simple tool making a box, but there are other ones, and it goes on and on. And again, I'm not learning all of it yet either, but let me show you. It's really quite simple. Take the box, plop it in, and then a shape control box pops up. You can hit the arrow and it disappears. You can take it and move it. You can zoom in or zoom out. I haven't figured out how to drag this where I want it, so I ended up, I used the arrow keys on my laptop to move it around on the surface. I must be missing something, but you can move it around. If you do the black point cone on the top, it physically moves it off the surface, and you see this number here giving you in inches. Just for a habit and to discipline, let's draw everything on the surface of the platter for now. Make sure that's 0. When these numbers pop up, you can actually click on them and enter, and then it redoes that. So you could put a number and then force it in like that. These buttons, these little grab buttons, if you click on those, you can actually drag this, and make it different shapes. And again, you could change it by typing in the value. If I grab this one, this one, and I click there, then it becomes like that. And if I grab the one for the height, you click back on this one, and then I can click here, or I can stretch it manually. It doesn't really matter. But basically, I've got that shape going like that. When you click off, you lose the controls. You click back on, and it pops back up. When you have the object, you can copy it, you can paste and delete and undo and all those other things as well. Click off, they all go away. Now, what are some of these? There's something going on that I'm not sure I understand. I'll show you in a minute, but I might be doing something wrong. But start here, radius. When you look at this cube, it has edges all over the place. And the radius on those edges is set to 0. Watch what happens as I rotate or stretch this. Do you see how the edges start to sort of round off a bit? You can kind of see them here, that it kind of smooths the corner over. And that smooth corner is called a fillet, or a rounded edge, a fillet. And if you look at furniture and lots of different objects in your house, you'll see that they keep, very rare do designers leave these sharp edges on them because it's annoying for humans to touch. So we like to soften things up a bit. Now, of course, you can go nuts over here. It gets to the point where it's not even a cube anymore. But if you rotate it like that, you can see those shapes. There's this other thing happening, and it's kind of hard to see. You can sort of see these steps things. I'm going to try a different color. Maybe it will help see it on the screen. But watch this. If I set the step at 1, but I have a radius, it's going to try to make a radius on the edge in one step. And obviously it comes down as this chunky 45-degree chop. If I put it at 2, it's going to try to make a radius with 2 steps. If I put it at 5, now it starts to look a little smoother. It's starting to round off. So you can just slide this up. You could go, I don't know, 15 steps to the point where you barely can tell it's stepping anymore. One of the things about TinkerCAD is it's an online cloud-based software. And I hope it's going to work because I know some of you are struggling with computing power at home, trying to find a strong enough or fast enough computer. I'm not an expert at this, but my guess is the more features you give your shape, the more RAM you're hogging up, the more things the computer software has to remember, and you might start to bog down. Probably doesn't really happen, but I just want you to keep in mind, don't go make this number like 5,000 or something crazy, because then you're asking the computer to crunch all that calculation. Probably around 10 is good enough for what we need if you're going to do that. Here's the part I didn't understand. I don't know if I'm making something wrong. Remember, I changed the length to 2. Why does this say 1? If I put 2 in, it goes double the length. And then I go here and here, and now it's saying 4. So I'm mixing something up. Something tells me that the overall length is 4, but this means from the center line out, or I'm misunderstanding this. Anyways, that's not a big issue. I sort that out as we use it more. You have a few other little tools up here. You can click the light bulb and now your shape disappears. Let's say you're editing, you're trying some ideas. In some softwares, you might call that layering. You can turn layers on and off. Click the light bulb and it comes back. So I don't know if that's a useful tool or not. And then if you lock it, you click around, but you can't change it anymore. And you might draw a shape and you want to make sure nobody messes with it. You might want to lock it. You can also duplicate shapes. So if you say hit duplicate, it will do that. And then I use the arrow key and now I have 2 of them. I can move this one around. And then if you click one shape, hold the shift key, and you click both of them, you can hit a group. And then what happens is they move around together and you can manipulate them. So that's kind of handy if you had a shape that repeats itself. You can always undo these things, so you can put it back down, and then there's the ungroup command, so you can do that, and then you can start moving around that individual one again if you need to. When you're done your design, you should save it. Make something up, and I hit it like that, and then that's it. I've already played around with a few others. You can click on something here to make a new design if you want, and then you can just leave. So that's it for my first tutorial. I'd like you to get into TinkerCAD, play around with some of the navigations, make up a simple cube, get familiar with some of the menus, and give it a go. That's all.